Jennifer Lawrence walked through the backstage corridor with the quiet confidence of someone used to direction but never confrontation. The MSNBC stage lights felt brighter than usual tonight, and for a moment she stopped, took a breath, and reminded herself why she agreed to the interview. She had invited debate, she had invited discomfort, and she had no idea how deep the chasm she was about to cross would go. Moments later she appeared under the lights and into Rachel Maddow's composed presence. The applause was polite, hushed, but she felt the atmosphere shift the second she sat down. This wasn't Hollywood PR. This was a press room, and they were ready to dig. Rachel's opening tone was warm but firm. "Jennifer, thank you for being here. You've used your platform to highlight women's issues, climate concerns, and mental health. Let me ask you, how prepared are you to answer not just ideals, but hard details?" Jennifer nodded, her posture steady. "I'm not here to talk in slogans. I want to talk about action, so let's start." Rachel leaned in, with professional curiosity. "Your foundation announced a $1 million climate pledge last year, but your most recent filing showed only 20% was allocated. Critics are calling it performance activism. What do you say?" Jennifer's expression moved from composed to simmering. She took a breath. "I understand the scrutiny. But here's what happened. The money was held for phased payouts tied to building community partnerships. It wasn't withheld, it was measured. My pledge was real, but I wanted it to be structured in a way that actually worked, not just sounded good." There was a moment of stillness. Rachel didn't smile or nod. She studied Jennifer, waiting. "Fair enough. Measured is good. But how many partnerships were finalized? Where's the recipient data?" Jennifer met the question head-on. "We've finalized 6 community-based nonprofit agreements in Mississippi, Appalachia, and California. Grants are scheduled for disbursement in the next 2 weeks. They're documented in our internal review, which we plan to make public by end of month." Rachel held her glance. "So you'll make it public. How? Online? Open to scrutiny?" Jennifer saw the eyes of the viewers layered behind Rachel's gaze. "Yes. Full transparency. No summary. Documents, partners, timelines." That drew a deep silence in the studio. Reporters leaned forward. Nothing about this sounded rehearsed. This sounded like bargaining for honesty on camera, and Jennifer wasn't backing down. Rachel pivoted. "Your acting career is built on strong emotion and empathy. But being empathetic publicly doesn't fix structural problems. Let's talk about your healthcare fundraising last year. You publicly supported a live event that raised $2 million. Reporting shows 60% was spent on administration and marketing. That leaves less for actual clinics. Was that mismanagement or planning?" Jennifer's jaw clenched for a split second. She looked away, inhaled, and answered steadily. "We didn't mismanage. We invested in infrastructure to create sustainable outreach. If we'd spent everything on services in one go, the impact wouldn't last. But that explanation wasn't delivered well. I take responsibility for that." Rachel pressed on. "Responsibility starts with transparency. Will you commit to a full impact report showing exactly where every dollar went and what it built?" Jennifer's breath came slower. "Yes. My foundation is preparing a third-party audit and will release a public impact study." Rachel paused. "Sounds hopeful, but note, will release. When?" Jennifer breathed again and said, "Within 90 days. I want accuracy and I want it right." That brought a hush across the room. Now it felt like a challenge accepted. The next pivot was sharper. "Jennifer, you recently confronted a protester at an event, shouting in anger. That moment went viral, not for outrage, but for the spectacle of a star losing control. Was that controlled empathy or performative meltdown?" Jennifer's eyes reflected past tension. Her voice softened but didn't break. "That protester was berating a family whose member had died in a mass shooting. My reaction was instinctive and human. I lost control, but I regret the execution, not the compassion. It reminded me I need training and accountability even when I think I'm speaking for justice." Every second passed felt layered. This conversation was not staged, it was raw. The idealism and controversy, the commitment and correction, now tangled in real time on national TV. Rachel nodded slowly. So you're admitting you made a mistake, and you're working on it. That's more than we get from most politicians. Jennifer looked Rachel in the eyes. I'm not a politician. I'm someone who can promise change and promise to work harder when I fail. Rachel tilted her head, waited in timing. We'll hold you to it. Jennifer straightened her shoulders. I ask you to. That completed a strange, electric exchange, both of them asking for accountability, both of them holding it in space. The audience remained silent, but their silence felt like recognition. Something had shifted. This hadn't been an interview. It was a moment. A confrontation between expectation and execution, between star persona and accountability, between public pressure and private responsibility. And in those moments, it felt immovable. Raw truths had surfaced, and neither side was backing down. Jennifer Lawrence adjusted her mic, already regretting the smile she'd forced at the end of the last segment. Off camera, Rachel Maddow leaned in and said just loud enough for the crew to hear. So if you're going to bring up women's rights, let's stick to facts, not feelings. Jennifer didn't respond. She couldn't. The cameras were already rolling again. Rachel's voice cut back in with polished precision. We're here with Academy Award-winning actress and activist Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer, you were saying before the break that reproductive rights are under threat. But isn't that a bit alarmist, considering the legal precedent still stands? Jennifer looked directly at Rachel. It's not alarmist. It's accurate. Roe versus Wade may be precedent, but precedent means nothing when half the country's politicians treat it like a suggestion, not a right. The audience stirred. Rachel pressed. But don't you think when celebrities speak with such certainty, it can come off as performative? Jennifer blinked once, then said, Is that what this is about? You think I'm acting? You think I sit through hearings and interviews and read the legislation because I'm bored? Rachel kept her tone even. I'm saying there's a difference between passion and policy. And sometimes, celebrities blur the line. Jennifer didn't wait. And sometimes journalists pretend neutrality when they're really just masking skepticism. I came here to talk about the erosion of rights, not defend my sincerity. Rachel gave a tight smile. I think our viewers can decide for themselves what's sincere. Jennifer leaned forward, her voice steady but sharp. What they can't do is afford to wait while everyone debates tone instead of substance. Every day we argue about the optics, more women lose access. More people suffer. But sure, let's dissect my delivery. The air thickened. The crew behind the cameras stood stiff, silent. Producers exchanged glances. Rachel exhaled, then asked, Would you be this passionate if you weren't a woman? Jennifer didn't answer immediately. Then she said, Would you be this dismissive if I weren't an actress? The audience froze. Rachel looked momentarily thrown. She said, This isn't about dismissal. It's about clarity. And clarity gets lost when rage takes over. Jennifer said, Rage is what happens when you beg to be heard for years and still get told to calm down. Rage is what happens when people die and you're asked to soften your message for comfort. Rachel opened her mouth, then shut it again. The silence buzzed like electricity. Jennifer looked straight into the camera now. If watching an actress care too much makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself why you're more bothered by tone than by injustice. Rachel tried to shift. Let's pivot to something lighter, your latest film. Jennifer cut in. No, you don't get to pivot just because you're uncomfortable. That's the problem. Women bring fire to these conversations, and suddenly it's too much. Too loud. Too messy. Rachel's voice dropped. Jennifer, this is a news show, not a protest. Jennifer stood up. The move was sudden, but it wasn't dramatic. It was resolved. She said, Maybe that's the problem. Maybe more news shows should feel like protests. The audience was dead silent. Now, before you see what Jennifer Lawrence does next, and trust me, it changes everything, I need to ask you something. Stories like this get cut, censored, quietly deleted from the feed. Why? Because they don't follow the script. But you're here because you care about the moments that don't get polished, that don't fit the narrative. If you believe in seeing people speak without filters, without edits, without permission, then subscribe right now. Subscribe before they make this disappear. Because what Jennifer says next, they did not want it aired. Jennifer turned to Rachel. Calm now. but the heat still in her voice. You want to make this about civility, about respectability. But I'm here to say, polite has never worked. Respectability has never stopped a rollback of rights. And if my tone offends you more than the injustice I'm calling out, then maybe you were never listening in the first place. Rachel replied, Jennifer, this isn't personal. Jennifer nodded. Exactly. That's the problem. It's not personal to you. The segment was supposed to run 3 more minutes. But Jennifer walked off right then. No apology. No glance back. Just gone. And what happened next would become one of the most debated moments in live political television history. The room stayed frozen for several seconds after Jennifer Lawrence left the set. Rachel Maddow remained in her seat, looking toward the wings where Jennifer had disappeared. The producers whispered furiously into earpieces, trying to decide whether to cut to commercial or continue broadcasting. Rachel straightened her shoulders. We were supposed to have more time with Jennifer Lawrence, but clearly this interview has come to a premature end. We'll take a short break. The screen faded to black. But behind the scenes, the cameras kept rolling. Jennifer didn't stop walking until she reached the dressing room hallway. A producer trailed behind her, clipboard in hand, voice pitched somewhere between panic and apology. Jennifer, we can fix this in post. We can soften the exchange. Just give us something else. Maybe a short statement. Jennifer turned around slowly, her face flushed but focused. You don't get to fix anything. That wasn't a glitch. That was the real me. The producer said, but the backlash. Jennifer interrupted. Let it come. I've played fictional characters my entire life. This time I'm not. A makeup assistant waiting nearby whispered, that was incredible, before quickly looking down. Jennifer nodded once and entered her dressing room, locking the door behind her. Back on air, Rachel Maddow returned with a tight expression. She began the next segment with an analysis of midterm election turnout. But her usual rhythm was off. The viewers knew it. The internet knew it. Clips of the clash were already spreading like wildfire. On Twitter, the moment Jennifer stood up went viral in under an hour. Not for scandal. For conviction. For clarity. The hashtags exploded. Hashtag Jennifer was right. Hashtag rage is valid. Hashtag Dante silencer. Clips circulated not just on fan accounts, but on political forums, advocacy pages, and academic circles. One clip, where Jennifer said, polite has never worked, was already being quoted on protest signs by morning. But the conversation was far from one-sided. Pundits lined up on both sides of the divide. One conservative commentator tweeted, Jennifer Lawrence just had a full celebrity meltdown on live TV. This is what happens when actors try to be activists. Another progressive voice replied, if what she said felt like a meltdown to you, maybe you're part of the problem. Late that night, Rachel addressed the controversy on MSNBC's online feed. Not in a segment. In a candid monologue. I've interviewed senators, presidents, whistleblowers, and revolutionaries. But rarely have I felt the tension that came with today's interview. Jennifer Lawrence brought rawness to this space that we don't often see. Was it polished? No. Was it orchestrated? Also no. That might be what makes it worth watching. She paused. And if you're uncomfortable, maybe that's the point. Meanwhile, Jennifer was silent. For 24 hours, she didn't post a statement. She didn't give a follow-up interview. She didn't tweet a clarification. She waited. And the silence spoke louder than anything. The following morning, she uploaded a video. No makeup. No editing. Just her, in a simple t-shirt, sitting in her backyard. She looked straight into the camera. I didn't plan to walk off. But I also didn't plan to sit there and pretend like I wasn't being patronized. I came to talk about real things. Not to be managed. Not to be softened. She paused. I'm tired of hearing that women need to be calm to be heard. That we need to smile while explaining why our rights matter. I'm done apologizing for the volume of my voice or the heat in my blood. You should be too. The video had 10 million views in 4 hours. That evening, Rachel Maddow was asked during an interview if she would invite Jennifer back. Rachel's answer was short. Absolutely. But the network's producers weren't so sure. Internal emails leaked a day later revealed MSNBC was reviewing the incident for procedural violations and concerned about maintaining broadcast decorum. Activists responded with fury. The pressure mounted. A Change.org petition to air Jennifer's full, uncut interview reached 250,000 signatures by nightfall. But what nobody knew was what Jennifer was planning next. She had taken every message, every headline, every twisted narrative, collected it like kindling. And now she was about to light it. Jennifer Lawrence stood at the edge of the makeshift podium in a packed community center just outside Los Angeles. It wasn't a red carpet event. It wasn't a fundraiser. There were no studio handlers, no network producers. Just folding chairs, portable mics, and over 300 people waiting in absolute silence to hear her speak. She looked different here. No spotlight. No filter. Just fire. "I didn't plan on becoming a headline this week," she began, her voice steady. "But since I already am, I figured I might as well speak clearly." A ripple of quiet laughter passed through the audience. Jennifer didn't smile. "I walked off that stage because I was done negotiating for respect. I was done making my arguments palatable so that power would stay comfortable. And if you've ever been told your tone matters more than your truth, then you already know why I walked." Applause erupted, not polite, but resonant. The kind of applause that comes not from being entertained, but from being recognized. She paused, letting it land. I wasn't silenced. I walked because I finally realized they couldn't silence me unless I stayed. That line hit like a drumbeat. In the front row, a young woman held up a handwritten sign. "Politeness never saved me." Jennifer saw it and nodded. "I was told backstage that I should be grateful for the airtime, that I was being given a platform. Let me be clear. No one gives us platforms. We build them ourselves. With our voices, with our courage, and with the risk of being labeled too much every time we tell the truth out loud." In New York, MSNBC was holding emergency strategy meetings. The full uncut footage of Jennifer's exit was now the most requested clip in the network's archive. They had a dilemma: air the footage and risk looking complicit in silencing a woman mid-speech, or suppress it and fuel the fire further. Meanwhile, Jennifer wasn't waiting for permission. The next day, she released the transcript of the full interview on her website, along with a call to action. "I'm not canceling Rachel Maddow. I'm not burning bridges. I'm building one toward a conversation that includes fire, frustration, and uncomfortable truth." She included a list of local clinics, advocacy groups, and organizations working to protect reproductive rights, linking each one with her own donation receipts. "I walked off a stage," the note read, "but I'm not walking away." Media outlets scrambled. Some praised her bravery. Others called it reckless. One outlet accused her of dismantling civil discourse with performance outrage. She responded in a tweet, "If dismantling civil discourse means making room for the uncivil reality women face every day, then I'll take that as a compliment." Meanwhile, Rachel Maddow was facing her own reckoning. She returned to her show 2 nights later with an unusually personal message. "I've built my career on asking hard questions. I'm proud of that. But sometimes the hardest question is one we don't ask. How much room are we really giving for a different kind of truth?" She looked directly into the camera. "Jennifer Lawrence, if you're watching, I'm listening now. For real this time." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Jennifer didn't respond directly. Instead, she booked a town hall series, 4 cities, open admission, free entry. Not panels, not speeches. Conversations. The first one filled up in 10 minutes. By the third, they had to move venues to a university auditorium. What was happening wasn't publicity. It was momentum. Jennifer had become more than an actress who stood up. She had become a voice for people tired of being asked to sit down. The final night of the tour, she walked on stage, holding a single index card. She didn't use it once. Instead, she stood under the lights and said, "We don't need perfect messengers. We need honest ones, angry ones, tired ones. Because if truth only counts when it's soft, then we've already lost." The crowd stood. No music played. No spotlight turned. Just voices. Cheering not for a movie star, but for a mirror, held up boldly, finally, without apology. The last night of the town hall tour had ended, but Jennifer Lawrence stayed behind in the empty auditorium. The chairs were scattered, the stage lights dimmed. The roar of applause had faded hours ago, replaced now by the sound of brooms sweeping and text packing cables. She sat on the edge of the stage, legs crossed, quiet, still. A young organizer approached her, holding a small stack of notes from attendees, letters, handwritten, folded pieces of paper left behind on seats. Jennifer took them without speaking. One note, written in a shaky script, simply read, "Thank you for not being polite." That stayed with her. 3 days later, MSNBC finally aired the full, unedited footage of the interview. No cuts, no commercial breaks. Just Jennifer and Rachel, from start to finish. What viewers saw wasn't a meltdown. It was a boundary being drawn. Rachel had requested the airing herself. In her introduction, she said, "When someone walks out, it's easy to make that the story. But what happens before they walk? That's the story we almost missed." The network's ratings surged that night. Not from scandal, from something else. Viewers said it felt like honesty. And in homes across the country, people watched Jennifer stand her ground, not because she was trying to win, but because she was done losing. In the days that followed, something changed. More celebrities began rejecting interviews that required pre-approval of topics. More politicians started sharing unedited moments, letting their missteps live alongside their convictions. The hunger for polished, careful messaging gave way to something raw, something real. It wasn't a revolution. It was a reset. Jennifer declined all offers to return to late-night shows. She didn't write a memoir. She didn't launch a foundation. She just kept showing up, quietly, consistently, at clinics, at rallies, at school boards, not as a star, just as someone who finally stopped whispering her truth. Months later, Rachel Maddow reached out privately. The message was simple: "Let's talk again." Off camera. Jennifer replied, "Only if it's real." They met at a quiet cafe in D.C. No cameras, no handlers. No one knows what was said. But later that week, Rachel opened her show with this: "We don't always get it right. But if we're willing to stay at the table, especially when it's uncomfortable, maybe that's the beginning of getting it better." Jennifer didn't respond. She didn't have to. The conversation had already moved. And this time, it wasn't waiting for permission. Back in the community center where her tour had started, someone had graffitied a wall. Just one sentence, in black spray paint. She walked out so we could stand up. No one painted over it. No one ever would.